We got keys to Vikings Commanders, we have prop bets, and of course, your bold predictions. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
Ooh-wee! You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast. I promise to never do that again. I am your host, your pal, and the kid you copied off in math class. My name is Luke Braun. You can find me on Twitter at Luke Braun NFL. Show is on Twitter at Locked On Vikings. And thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. Today on the show, of course, we'll talk about some keys to the Vikings beating the Commanders. Then we'll talk about some prop bets brought to you, of course, by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. A little late on this Friday episode, so I apologize if I missed your morning commutes. Was feeling a little bit under the weather on Thursday night when I usually record, then had an internet outage. So we're back. We're here. Thank you for your patience on that. Keys to the game. Keys to Vikings Commanders is where we are going to start today. Look, Taylor Heinicke isn't a good quarterback. I don't think that's a very controversial statement, and he shouldn't be starting. And I think if the Commanders could do it all over again, they would do it in such a way that Taylor Heinicke would not be starting in the 2022 season. But he is a weird quarterback, and it seems like he's not going to make, crazy throws down the field. He is not the kind of guy you design an offense around that requires him to make crazy throws, and that makes some defensive things a little bit easier. When you are like a high school DC, and I'm sure high school DCs are listening to this that have probably experienced this, but correct me if I'm getting it wrong. But when you're going up against a high schooler and their quarterback is some 17-year-old that can't throw 40 yards outside the hashes, you are going to call a lot of cover two. They call a lot of cover two in high school because the throws that beat cover two are like that turkey hole throw. You know what I mean? That one like up the sideline over the safety. Had one to DeAndre Hopkins last week. That's the throw that beats cover two. Well, high school quarterbacks can't make that throw. Can Taylor Heinicke make that throw? I think that's a key to the game, is if he can make that throw and make things a little bit harder on the Vikings, and make them cover a little bit more, then it will be that much easier for them to get a run game going, for Heinicke to scramble around. If he can prove that throw is something that he can make, and he can prove that the Vikings have to respect it. But if they don't have to respect it, if they let that throw happen and it sails 3 yards out of bounds, then it's going to be a long day for Washington. And I personally think that that's a more likely outcome. But also, there's a lot of talk about whether the Vikings are blitzing enough, and they are blitzing not a lot. Like, they just do not blitz a lot, and it's just not how they work. And they did a lot of 4-man pressures and a lot of simulated pressures, and they use players in the pressure package, but they're not sending more than 4 a lot. And I think that's the right move again. I don't think blitzing Taylor Heinicke is great because he's got the escapability. And then when you have depleted coverage and a scramble drill, that's like kind of a recipe for disaster. So I like the idea actually of rushing 4, trying to do it creatively, get your one-on-ones with their backup center again. You got a backup center again. So get your Za'Darius Smith on Tyler Larson, who's also banged up, by the way. I think he's going to play, but he's playing hurt. And that can be your pass rush plan, and then just kind of back off cover, try to man cover, try to cap Terry McLaurin and see if you can't make Curtis Samuel beat you. I think that is a winning game plan for the Vikings. FYI, injury report stuff. Dalvin Tomlinson's a no-go for this game. Obviously, Irv Smith is on IR. If you hadn't heard that already, he'll be out for a while. Dalvin Tomlinson is out. It seems like he's a week-to-week proposition. He didn't practice all week. I don't think he's close yet. But it's still something to like watch every week to see when he actually gets in. But I think it'll be a few. That's just a gut feeling, though. Questionable is Cam Dantzler and Jalen Nailor. Cam Dantzler has been limited all week. We'll see if he goes. He seems like a true game time decision. If he doesn't go, and I'm going to guess a Caleb Evans. A lot of people are saying, all right, Andrew Booth time. He was behind a Caleb Evans on the depth chart, like on the stated depth chart. And then when it was time for someone to come in. I believe this was after Andrew Booth was healthy and it was time for someone to come in because I think Cameron Dantzler got nicked up or something. Evans would be the one that comes in. And like he's out snapping Andrew Booth and all that. Like Booth's role right now is special teams. And based on preseason, I actually think that's appropriate. And I know that's weird because he had a higher draft pedigree, and I still think Booth has a much higher ceiling. I think he can be a starting quality corner. And I'm not sure if a Caleb Evans has as much like star power as Booth could have. But right now, the way Booth plays, you know how it felt like we kept getting bailed out of every third down against the Lions and Saints by defensive holding? Would you like to do that? Would you like to have that be your defense? Because that's the Andrew Booth experience right now. I don't think that's viable to put on the field, and I think a redshirt year would do him good. But either way, I hope it's Cam Dantzler over either of those guys. But I think it would be Evans if you asked me. But we'll see. Could be wrong. On the other side of the ball, just trying to move the ball, this feels like a Justin Jefferson game. I'll get into it with the You Betcha and stuff, but this feels like a Jefferson game. They have a real problem at cornerback. They just traded away William Jackson for peanuts. They've got, and they've like played him like he was not a sixth corner that somebody beat out really easily in training camp. So they have had secondary issues. And it means that even if they're doubling Jefferson, they don't have the kind of guy that can jam him successfully off the line and disrupt the timing the way that you have to get those strategies to work. I mean, that was Darius Slay and Jeff Okudah. There is no Darius Slay on the Commanders, and it's been a huge problem for them. And I believe their run defense has struggled too. They've got some horses up front on the defensive line, but I still feel like the Vikings will be able to run, if only because of the way that they ran against Arizona. They had nickel personnel against base package. It was the thing that Miami did that the Vikings struggled with so much. They bulldozed it against Arizona. And I know Arizona doesn't have the same horses that Washington has, but it's still have J.J. Watt and Zach Allen. Like, those guys are not slouches. Marcus Golden, longtime veteran. Like, those guys don't suck. The idea that the Vikings could run on all of those looks at a size disadvantage. They had the Cardinals had one more linebacker than you're supposed to. Part of that is because of Isaiah Simmons, by the way, who's like kind of a safety, kind of a defensive lineman, and kind of a linebacker. So like that's their nickel guy, I guess. But it's still like they were at a size disadvantage, like the Cardinals wanted. And the Vikings ran like crazy on them. So I think the Vikings run game has figured something out here. And I don't think the Commanders can go do the same base package thing against 11 personnel. Doesn't even get you the run game advantage you want, and it's a huge disadvantage in the pass. So I think you might get the Commanders to play this a little more straight up and get the looks that you want. And that's the world the Vikings want to live in. I think they've earned that back. But I'm really curious to see. I'm curious to see the personnel usage that the Commanders use, and if they try to copy the same thing that the Dolphins and Cardinals, two teams that have lost to the Vikings, have done. That's as good a time as any to get into our You Betcha segment, which will be brought to you by Bet Online. But first, Prediction Strike is a lower risk alternative to sports betting. It's like stocks. You can like invest in professional athletes. So you could say, buy a stock in Jalen Naylor or buy a stock in TJ Hawkinson, right? Nobody knows what he's going to do. Or maybe sell some stock in TJ Hawkinson because maybe he's gotten so inflated by the trade and you don't think he's going to produce as much. It's actually kind of how I feel. I don't think that like yards production is the best way for TJ Hawkinson to be used. I would rather have the ball actually go to Justin Jefferson and just have Hawkinson be another way to get to that. So maybe you think his production will go down. Whatever you think, go to Prediction Strike and you can sort of buy, sell as you would buy and sell stocks. If you, for example, invested in Jalen Hurts 1 year ago, you'd be up 48.2%. All of the athletes also benefit. They are entitled to a percentage of their market cap, which is a pretty big deal. Like sports betting companies don't do that. And you can invest in multiple sports, not just NFL, but UFC, NBA, and MLB. So download the Prediction Strike app and use code LOCKED for a free share when you sign up and make a first deposit of $20 or more. That's promo code LOCKED for a special one-time giveaway. Prediction Strike will choose one person who signs up with the promo code LOCKED and makes a deposit to win 100 free random shares. It could be worth up to $3,000 if you get lucky and receive like Josh Allen's shares. Invest in what you know on Prediction Strike, the stock market for sports. Let's also talk about the best tasting protein bar on the planet. It is Built Bar. They got all kinds of new, wild, and deeply unholy things for something that is 130 calories. How about coconut brownie, cookie dough topper, coconut brownie topper, white chocolate peppermint granola. It's Built's take on the granola bar, so it's a little bit more filling. It's super tasty. And they're revolutionizing nutrition as we know it with 100% real chocolate covering these things and like 17 grams of protein, but way low on sugar and calories, 130 calories, like I said. So just sink your teeth into one of these Built bars. You got to try this. Get 15% off of your order right now by using code LOCKEDON15. It's a different code than it used to be. LOCKEDON15 at built.com. Once again, thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day. We'll get into some more traditional grambling here. But first, check me out on Patreon. I'm doing some film breakdown stuff, some more in-depth film breakdown stuff on Patreon. I'm having a lot of fun with Patreon. I had a lot of fun breaking down the Cardinals game because that is a fun game to watch. The Vikings played pretty well in it. So let's talk about some Grambles. I have 4 prop bets here, but first, the Vikings line has moved a little bit. It was 3.5 when I did crossover Thursday with Locked On Commanders yesterday. It's now at 3. And why that happens is a question I get a lot. So I actually have Dave Mason here, who is an odds maker at BetOnline, who can sort of talk about how this has shifted over the course of the week.
The 6-1 and NFC North leading Vikings open as 2.5-point road chalk versus the 4-4 Commanders. Sharps hit -2.5, and the number crept up to -4 before Sharps bought back on the Commanders +4, moving the spread to the current number, Vikings -3.5. Overall, the bet count is pretty choppy, but 62% of the early cash is back in the Commanders.
I don't know. I find that kind of stuff neat, where the sharps are, where the money is always going. And if you think the money is overreacting, that is one way to react to that. But like a lot of times I will just follow the money. I'll say, man, this is a -130. That means a lot of people are betting on it such that the market has to like reduce the payout so that they don't lose money, right? That is a pretty good sign that a lot of people think something in particular is going to happen. For example, Taylor Heineke over half an interception. So will Taylor Heineke get an interception in this game is -162. That's really low odds. And I'm actually going to take it just because the market kind of says to. Like everybody's taking this. I want my piece too. So I am taking Taylor Heineke to throw an interception. I'm also taking a Taylor Heineke TD, which would have to be a rushing TD, not a passing touchdown. That is +450. I just like the idea. Look, they're going to get in the red zone. You're going to have some weird scrambling. He's going to just like put one in and the coverage will be man coverage. So there won't be anybody in there. Feels like the kind of thing that could happen. And it's +450. That means you get like 5.5 or 4.5 to 1 odds. So you would get, if you bet $100 on this, you would win $450. Put a half a unit on it. That's all I'm doing. It's a sort of a flyer to just like throw out there. But if it hits, it kind of pays for the rest of your bets for the rest of the day. That's the kind of thing that I'm doing with Taylor Heineke here. So 1 rushing touchdown and 1 interception feels like the kind of game that Taylor Heineke could have. Sticking with the Commanders, the other one I wanted to say was Terry McLaurin over 67.5 yards. They just gave up 159 to DeAndre Hopkins, and the guy who did that is questionable for the game, which means it's either him playing hurt or a guy who didn't beat him in camp in a Caleb Evans. And like nobody thinks that Caleb Evans should start over Cameron Dantzler. So somebody is going to be a liability over there, whether it's Cam Dantzler versus Terry McLaurin. Like that is a liability of a matchup. And that's not to disparage Cam Dantzler too hard. DeAndre Hopkins is phenomenal. He's going to get most corners, but like Terry McLaurin's going to get most corners too. So that is going to be a difficult matchup. And if the Commanders want, they can probably find that one-on-one a lot unless the Vikings are really protecting it. I actually think Dantzler playing might be better for this prop because if it's a backup, the Vikings will put like half coverages over there, put a safety over the top of a Caleb Evans, protect him all day. They might trust Cameron Dantzler a little bit more and put quarters over there, which means Cameron Dantzler will end up with man outside and deep, one-on-one coverage. is what that basically means. We'll end up in one-on-one coverage with Terry McLaurin like a decent amount. And that does not bode well for the Vikings, at least on defense. 67.5 isn't that crazy of a total. For you just need a little bit of that to happen. And I think it's it would be a lot of improvement to go from we gave up 159 to we gave up less than 70 to your number one guy. That would be a stark improvement. Vikings could do it, but I also don't necessarily think that they need to. If they can kind of stop the run and keep Taylor Heineke under pressure, McLaurin might be able to get a lot and the Vikings still win. And I do think the Vikings will win. And I think that they will cover. I thought they would cover the 3.5 point spread. I would definitely say take them +3 now that you don't have that hook point to deal with. But the other two props that I'm taking here are Justin Jefferson ones. Over 87.5. Like I said, I think this is a Jefferson game. I don't think the Commanders have the corners to deal with him. I don't think they have the ability to. They'll have to triple team him, and I don't know if they have the desperation to do that. I think they believe in their defense a little more than like the Lions do. So I don't think they're going to get that crazy. And that would be the only way to keep Justin Jefferson out. And I don't even think that's a good idea for them. Like, I don't think they should get that crazy because I don't think they have the corners to cover Thielen either. So I say JJ over 87.5. I think they'll play it a little more straight up, and Justin Jefferson will be able to find his. He's gone over 100 yards in 4 of the last 7 games. And one of the 3 that he didn't, he got 98. Like, he gets this a lot. So I like the over 87.5. And then the last one I'm going to do, something you can do on Bet Online, which is Jefferson touchdown plus Vikings win double. It's like a parlay. If you just take the Vikings money line, which is at -165. So that's also a fun thing to do. The betting market thinks it is just as likely that the Vikings win that Taylor Heineke will throw an interception at some point in this game. So if you think Heineke's good for an interception, you can be exactly that confident. So you take that -165, parlay it with the Justin Jefferson getting a touchdown, which is also less than 1-to-1 odds, and parlay them into a +112 outcome. If Justin Jefferson gets a touchdown and the Vikings win, you get more than double your money. That is the kind of thing that I think can happen in this game. I really like that bet at +112. And that I just feel good about it. I feel good about this game. And I don't feel great about the next one, but this one, the way the Commanders line up, they're no slouch of a team. They have Terry McLaurin. They have a good interior. They're missing 2 of their linebackers. I thought about doing a rushing over as well, and I certainly wouldn't blame you if you did. But just the way that they line up and the schematic kind of context of this one, the momentum the Vikings have in that, there was a really good idea that could have kind of been the answer to them this season, and the Vikings beat it outright, and now you can't use that. And that's the base personnel versus 11 thing that Miami did. Great idea. And the Vikings have sort of overcome it and proven that that's not a thing. And I don't think a team will be comfortable just copying that idea. So now Washington's going to come out doing, I don't really know. And so I also kind of feel like this could come out to be a slow start of a game. And then the Vikings offense will have to figure it out. Because I don't think the Vikings get to know what they're going to see, which can kind of be advantage Commanders. But the Commanders don't get any proof of concept that what they're doing is going to work all day. So this one could come down to adjustments and those adjustments, I'm not talking halftime. I'm talking 2 drives in adjustments. If it's 3-4 drives and the offense is struggling, then we can worry. But first 2 drives, kind of don't have that much of an expectation. And that can be more of an info gathering mission. And I'm totally all right with that. Those odds are brought to you by Bet Online, where the game starts. Bet Online, of course, has you covered this season. I also want to talk to you about hiring season. LinkedIn is the place to go, all right? If you are trying to fill a spot for maybe that holiday rush or whatever is happening, maybe you're just trying to get over the hump for that fiscal year and you're trying to find that perfect candidate, then LinkedIn is, of course, the place to go. If you're not putting your job on LinkedIn, what are you doing here? All you have to do is create a free job post on LinkedIn Jobs. It's the easiest thing in the world to do. And then add your job and the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. And they have all kinds of other simple tools like screening questions and stuff that make it easy to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so that you can prioritize who you'd like to interview and who you want to hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Are you ready to get bold? These are a lot more fun in the morning when I just had coffee. All right, it's time for bold predictions. This is the part, my favorite part of the week, every week, because I get to find the craziest thoughts that you all can conjure. You give me your boldest predictions. I pick a few of my favorites to read on the show. And if any of them hit, we're going to party here on this here podcast. Let's go over the ones from last week and see if any of them hit. Last week, Spaceman said that Kirk Cousins would have the same amount of passing yards as total points scored in the Lakers-Timberwolves game on the preceding Friday. That was 213, and Cousins got like 230 something, so you got kind of close. Like, I'm giving you the spirit of this one. Good job, but obviously didn't hit. Steezo had to do the one, so we had a little bit of context because the only time we've ever hit a bold prediction on this show was Vikings-Cardinals week 2 last year. Somebody said that Kirk Cousins would have more rush yards than Kyler Murray, so we had to bring that back. Steezo got to it first. Of course, we did not get there. We were on it for a while, though, because it was another Kirk scrambling game. I guess the Cardinals defense is just particularly susceptible to Kirk Cousins scrambles because it's the only game every year that he gets to do that. Nobody else loses to Kirk Cousins rushing like the Cardinals do. But the person who got that last year, Kyle Slaby, the champion, said that there would be a revenge game and that P2 and Jordan Hicks would have touchdowns against their former team. Man, you got the spirit of this one, didn't you? They got game balls because of the revenge game narrative. Like, you totally got the spirit. It's just that you said touchdowns. If you had said that they got game balls, like, I would have taken that and you would have actually had another one. So Kyle Slaby, just a cut above. Eric the Red said that there would be back-to-back kick return touchdowns in the game. Didn't hit that, but love the energy. David Whitting said that we would have multiple wideouts go over 100 yards. I don't think we had one. A tight end and running back go over 50 yards receiving. Again, don't think we had one. It was like a rushing game, and one wide receiver would go over 50 yards rushing. It was a very normal rushing game, but we did not get anywhere on that one. Malcolm Biggles said that the Vikings defense would sack Murray exactly 5 times for every rushing touchdown he scores. I said like 0-0 wouldn't count. And there were no Kyler Murray rushing touchdowns. So you need to have at least one to make the bet live. So we didn't get there, but let's go on to next week. We keep marching forward. The first one comes from Skull Actuary, who predicts that the Commanders will commit more turnovers than they have first down conversions on third down. I feel inclined to include fourth downs here. So like third or fourth down conversions or turnover will be under the amount of turnovers that they commit. Just to make it that much bolder for you. But also, I feel like in spirit, if it's a bunch of fourth down conversions and you backdoor it, I feel like that doesn't quite get the spirit of this. Next one comes from Arch, who says, Kirk gives us an emphatic, you like that, walking down the same tunnel as 7 years ago. Okay, so here's the deal. I do not believe Kirk Cousins is allowed in that particular tunnel, which makes this one nigh impossible. But that would be a very pedantic way to go about this. So I will say if it's a you like that in the tunnel, and we need the clip, we need the virality of it, it needs to be a thing. If that happens, if we get a you like that, and you said that like 300, you gave me a stat line. I don't need the stat line. I need a you like that emphatic, because if it's a comeback win, the energy of this is even cooler, and I'm still totally taking that. If that happens, that you like that clip will replace the ooh-ee at the beginning of every Locked On Vikings podcast. I'll put some stakes on it because I would love that. But no locker room one, because we've already had a locker room you like that a couple times, I think. No, we need the tunnel. We need it to evoke the energy of the original FedEx Field you like that. Tyler Fornes says that TJ Hawkinson, we had to have a Hawkinson one, has 2 catches for less than 5 yards each and a touchdown. There were a few TJ Hawkinson ones. This one is the funniest, so I went with it, where he only has 2 catches for 2 goal line touchdowns. Love it. Under 5 yards each. Twins fan Ben, I'm so sorry, Ben, for your Twins fandom, says Kirk Cousins keeps twice on read option plays and converts both for first downs or scores. I love it. We got Russian Kirk. I would love the Vikings to do that. I do think that Kirk's got, I mean, he's not Daniel Jones. He's not Lamar, but I think he's got enough wheels for a read option to be there. And last year the Vikings did run read option, but I don't think Kirk ever kept. And I don't know if it was a true read option or if it was just a shotgun run that Kirk Cousins was just making it look like it. But I do think that they could get away with having Kirk keep on a read option. I actually think that that's there because people don't respect it. So I would love to see this. Kelsey says Heineke hurdles a player, Josh Allen style. There were some other parts of this, but I kind of just snipped out this one. Heineke hurdles a player, Josh Allen style. Yep, I could see the cursed energy of that one. And if the Vikings lose and then there's that, it's the only clip anyone will ever show for the rest of the Commanders season and for the rest of the Vikings season. And whoever gets hurdled will be, if it's anything like Anthony Barr, they will be reviled by the Vikings fandom forever. Gabe, I love this one, says Jefferson will have 15 receptions. Cook, 2 receptions. Hawkinson, 10 receptions, which is just a stat line. I usually wouldn't take it. But if you take each of those numbers and match them up with their corresponding letter in the alphabet, that spells OBJ. And he says the most elaborate recruiting scheme in NFL history. Okay, so I need a 15, a 10, and a 2. I don't need the names. So a 15, a 10, and a 2 by anybody. And I will give this because the point is the recruiting pitch. So it can be, Jefferson 15, Thielen gets 10, and Hawkinson gets 2. Don't care who it is, but we need a 15, a 10, and a 2 to make sure that we get the OBJ spelled out. And then I am going to throw my hat in the ring as well, because I have one that I did on the Minnesota football party that I'm just going to reiterate here. I think the Washington Commanders will get booed more than Kirk Cousins does. It's the first Kirk Cousins return to FedEx Field. He might get a big boo here. He might get, that divorce didn't go very swimmingly. There was a little bitterness. So there might be a little bit of vitriol there, and he might get booed a little bit. But I think by the end of the day, the Commanders are going to be the ones getting booed more than Kirk Cousins. I don't know if that's even bold enough. I'll say I'll parlay that with a 2-score victory. There we go. That kills the spread. I'll parlay that with a 2-score victory. So we'll check out those bold predictions next Friday episode. This is it. This is the last time we get to talk before the Commanders game, and then we are on to Bills week, which I know everybody's looking forward to a lot, so I'm excited. But one game at a time, we'll talk about these Commanders. Tomorrow, you can check the postcast out. The audio will be up as soon as I can after the game, and the video will be live on the Locked On Minnesota Sports YouTube page. You can find me and Sam Ekstrom doing that, so go check that out. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And as always, I'll see you all on Monday. And as always, Skol.